Now, you've probably seen gluten-free products. You see a label there, gluten-free. Gluten is a protein found in wheat, barley, and rye. It's what gives the bread a texture. So why do people need to avoid it? How do you know if you need to be on gluten-free diet? I think that's the first question that anybody thinking of going gluten-free should answer, because the reality is gluten-free products are not that many. There isn't many options for gluten-free products, and they are, or they could be, very expensive. So how do you know if you need to be gluten-free, and how can I be sure that my food is actually gluten-free? We're also going to explore the symptoms that might indicate gluten sensitivity, tips on identifying gluten-free foods, and practical advice for those considering a gluten-free diet. A lot of people are going gluten-free, but is it for you? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Adelita, and I'm the Lifestyle Changer MD. Today, we're going to discuss a hot topic that's been buzzing around for a while, and that's gluten-free. You might have noticed gluten-free products popping up everywhere, in restaurants, in grocery stores, or maybe one time you've passed by a small aisle in the grocery store and you see this label, gluten-free products. What are these foods? Are these from other countries or other planet? I mean, it's just this, feels odd sometimes to have a very specific classification of food. So, gluten free is something that most people are adapting by choice or by recommendation of their doctor. I think it's a big question. There's a big question that we need to answer, and that is, do I need to be gluten free? Let's break this down together, okay? Now, you've probably seen gluten free products from grocery stores, and maybe when you search through the restaurant menu, you see a label there, gluten free. But how do you know if you need to be on gluten free diet? I think that's the first question that anybody thinking of going gluten free should answer, because the reality is gluten-free products are not that many. They're not meant there isn't many options for gluten-free products, and they are, or they could be, very expensive. So, how do you know if you need to be gluten-free? What are the symptoms you should look for? And how can I be sure that my food is actually gluten-free? Okay? So, are you enjoying a sweet treat right now and wondering if it contains gluten? Whether it's that slice of cake or your favorite candy bar, know that gluten can hide in many, many unexpected places. So stick around, because in this video, we will dive deep into the questions, those three questions, and give you practical tips on how to ensure you're on a gluten-free diet. We're also going to explore the symptoms that might indicate gluten sensitivity, tips on identifying gluten-free foods, and practical advice for those considering a gluten-free diet or lifestyle. So, I would like to start with the first question, which is, how do I know if I need to be gluten-free? First, let's talk about wheat gluten, okay? What is gluten? Gluten is that protein. So I want you to remember, when you hear the word gluten, it's protein. It's the protein found in wheat, barley, and rye. And these are plant foods. See, plants have protein, I told you, right? So gluten is a protein found in wheat, barley, and rye. It's what gives the bread a texture, that form, and it helps it rise. So why do people need to avoid it? You might wonder. Well, there are few reasons. The most well known is celiac disease. Celiac disease is an autoimmune disorder where even a tiny bit of gluten can cause a serious harm to the body, to the small intestine, to your gut. So people with celiac disease must completely avoid gluten. Somehow their body develop these antibodies that attack or that kind of tag the gluten and cause an unnecessary immune reaction. So that's celiac disease. Then there's non-celiac gluten sensitivity, or NCGS. People with NCGS don't have the autoimmune reaction. They just simply experience symptoms that like bloating and stomach pain when they eat gluten. And let's not forget there's a third category of people that need to avoid gluten. Third are those people with wheat allergy. Okay, so the wheat allergy people, they are the ones that need to avoid wheat, but not necessarily the gluten. But since if we eat wheat, gluten is in it, then therefore automatically they have to cancel out wheat in their diet. Okay, but these people with wheat allergy only may not need to avoid rye and barley, right? Because they are not sensitive to gluten. It's just the wheat. Okay? So there's three groups of people: celiac disease, the non-celiac gluten sensitivity, and those with wheat allergies. Now, if you have all this or any of these three, you may already know that gluten is off limits. And the next question you're going to ask is, well, what if you're not sure, right, that you have any of those three? You could probably use your sensitivity to symptoms. I mean, you evaluate your signs and symptoms, start there, because there are signs and symptoms that you might want to consider a gluten free diet. And here are a few. Number one is digestive issues. People with any of those three conditions may have digestive issues and symptoms. So if you're experiencing frequent bloating and gas and diarrhea or constipation after eating a gluten containing food, it might be worth investigating further. You might need to seek medical consultation. Now, another symptom of of that may need you to consider going gluten free is fatigue and brain fog. Now, some people report feeling unusually tired or just having difficulty concentrating after consuming gluten. The third is skin problem. Conditions like eczema or unexplained rashes can sometimes be linked to gluten sensitivity again after consuming gluten containing foods. And another symptom is joint pain. So some report unexplained joint pain for those who after they consume a gluten containing food. Now, if you noticed, these are just the list of the symptoms that most people report: digestive issues, fatigue and brain fog, joint pain, or skin problems. If you notice, these symptoms, signs and symptoms are not really specific. They're not specific. I mean, you can feel fatigue for other reasons, right? You haven't slept for many days, or maybe you haven't rested, or you have been under stress. So you can feel that too. Thyroid issues, thyroid problems can cause it. There are many other medical conditions that can still present this signs and symptoms. So my point is, even if you have the signs and symptoms, please know that they are not specific to immediately consider that you need to be on a gluten-free diet. Okay. Now, if you're experiencing any of these symptoms and you've done your kind of your elimination method, I strongly suggest that you consult with a healthcare provider because they can run tests for celiac disease or suggest a more tailored, specific elimination diet to see if your symptoms really improve without gluten. Okay. Now, the second question we need to tackle is how can you tell if your food is gluten free? This can be really tricky because, especially if you are eating processed food. But there are tips that I want to share with you if you are on a gluten free diet. Number one, read the label. Look for products that are labeled gluten free. Please know that although they may be labeled as gluten free, they can still potentially contain some gluten, but less than 20 parts per million of gluten, which is safe for most people with gluten sensitivities. But you're still doing yourself a big favor by just reading the label front and back of that product, right? Second tip I want to share with you is check the ingredients. Not only reading the big labels on that product, you've got to read that smaller, tiny list of ingredients at the back of the product. In the ingredients section, you're going to look for words like wheat, rye, barley, and their derivatives. Derivatives can be in the form of flour, right? Um, and when I say wheat, rye, and barley, know that they have varieties. Like wheat has a variety has other varieties like durum or spelt. And then also I want you to remember that oats, unless they are labeled gluten free, they can be contaminated with gluten. So if you are especially diagnosed with celiac disease or the non-celiac gluten sensitivity or wheat allergy, and you really need to be completely off gluten in your food, and you are on an oat diet, you're eating oats instead, please look for gluten-free labeled oats because they can be contaminated. Another tip, cross contamination. Be mindful of cross contamination, especially in restaurants. So ask about their preparation methods to ensure your meal is truly gluten free. Fourth tip, use the apps. We are so fortunate nowadays that we have the apps, we have the technology at the at the tip of our finger to check if this particular product we are holding has gluten or other derivatives. So several apps can actually scan barcodes of the product and check if a product is gluten free. So those are my tips on how to ensure that you are on safe zone of these products and make sure they are gluten free. Okay? Now, although gluten is tied up to the wheat, barley, and rye, and flour, and bread, please know that this gluten can be hiding in some uncommon places. And I'm talking about, for example, sweet treats, right? So if you're enjoying a sweet treat right now, here's a quick tip. Because many sweets like candies and chocolates, they can contain gluten still, especially if they have cookie or wafer fillings. So always check the label of that product before you eat, and better yet, make your own gluten-free desserts at home. That's the surest way to be on a gluten-free diet, right? So now we've answered two questions already, right? How do I know if I need to be on a gluten-free diet, and what can I do to uh, be sure that that the food I'm about to eat is gluten-free? The third question I'm going to answer in this video is, what if I don't have celiac disease, or the non-celiac gluten sensitivity, or the wheat allergy? What if I don't have any of those and my doctor told me for sure you don't have that? Should I still consider going gluten free? And I know many people are stuck in this question. The answer is not straightforward. Some people without this condition say they feel better on a gluten free diet. They report less bloating, they report more energy. I don't know how much of that is psychological though, but it makes me question that if they did get better, if they do are getting better with on a gluten-free diet, is it possible that it's not just the lack of gluten in their diet that made them have more energy? It's actually also based on the fact that they're eating fewer and fewer processed foods. That's something to think about, right? Because when you are on a very specific diet, you're more mindful of what you're eating, and you cannot just be grabbing any, food in a package or in a container, because then you would worry about gluten sneaking in that product. So you're more mindful of what you're eating, and your people. It's been shown that people with gluten sensitivity are more are leaning more towards a whole food diet, because of that risk of running the risk. If you're just eating any processed foods or prepared foods, then you could not be assured of a gluten-free diet. So I think that it's something to ponder on, that those people who have tried a gluten-free diet without any diagnosis at all, medical diagnosis at all, their conditions are improving, their symptoms are going away because they're eating less processed foods. Now, going gluten-free has some downsides if you don't need to do it. Like what? Remember that going gluten-free can run you the risk of missing out on other micronutrients that are present in that food, not just the gluten. There are whole grains that are packed with essential nutrients like fiber and iron and B vitamins. Cutting this out without proper substitutes can lead to deficiencies. So, for example, you're not really sure, your doctor said, I don't think you have this gluten sensitivity, but for sure, if you want to go, try gluten-free diet, you can, you can really do that. Now, when you're cutting out wheat, barley, rye, and other whole grains with gluten, remember that you're not just cutting out carbs and gluten, you're also cutting out essential nutrients, micronutrients, phytonutrients from those foods. So, for example, like fiber, like iron, like vitamin B, these need to be substituted if you are significantly cutting out these foods from your diet. Now, that's one downside, right, of going gluten free. So, and another thing is, if you're going gluten free, please know that these products are more expensive, really more expensive than the regular foods, and following a gluten-free diet can make social events and dining out a bit tricky and challenging. So, those are the things that I want you to consider. In general, practical tips I want to share with you if you are on the verge or on the fence of going, should I go gluten free diet or not? Please know that if you do, number one, focus on whole foods. And the best foods that you can substitute or you can focus more on are the fruits, the veggies, the lean proteins. And I mean lean, when I say lean, that's not the meat, it's the plant based proteins. And you can get that from your legumes, from your nuts, from your seeds, right? And even vegetables have protein too. So there are gluten-free grains like brown rice and quinoa. They are your friends, right? And then read labels carefully, please. Gluten can be sneaky, and they can hide in sauces and dressings for sure. And then supplement if necessary. If you're missing out on the fiber and iron and B vitamins, consider a supplement. But always talk to your healthcare professionals first, all right? And then stay hydrated. Stay hydrated because water is a key for good digestion and overall health, no matter what your conditions are. And then consider consulting a plant based dietitian because they can help you create a balanced, nutritious meal plan. Those are all my tips. I hope that you've written them down if you're considering a gluten-free diet. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know in the comment section below if you've tried going gluten-free and how it worked for you. Until next time, stay healthy and happy. Bye.